One single person can poison your life without ever laying a hand on you. They do it with their voice, with half-whispered words, with carefully rehearsed smiles and fake confidences. They do it slowly, day after day, the way someone drips poison into your water one drop at a time until you no longer notice the taste. This is the story of Elena Marchetti, 44 years old, and how one morning in March she changed the balance of an entire apartment building forever. If you've made it this far, don't leave now. What you're about to hear will make you think about something you may already have lived through, or maybe something you are living through right now. And if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, do it now so you don't miss any of these stories. The Aurora building stood at 14 Via Torricelli, in Turin's Crocetta district, one of those elegant 1930s Liberty-style buildings with grey stone cornices, wrought iron balconies, and an inner courtyard where, in summer, a wisteria vine bloomed so heavily its scent reached the 3rd floor. 6 floors, 11 apartments, 22 families had come and gone over the last 20 years. But one person had always remained there, unmoving like a pillar, like a stopped clock that somehow still watched everything. Renzo Cattaneo, 67 years old, retired, former city clerk, had lived on the 2nd floor for 32 years. He had slicked back white hair, shiny with pomade, a brown bathrobe he wore until 11 every morning, and a wicker chair on the balcony from which he monitored the front entrance like a medieval guard watching city walls. He knew everyone's schedule. He knew who came home late, who had visitors, who had argued the night before because voices carried upward from the courtyard. He knew when the woman on the 4th floor fought with her husband, when the boy on the 5th floor came home at 3 in the morning, when someone received certified mail. He collected information with the care of an archivist. He stored it, organized it, then distributed it with the precision of someone who knew exactly what to say, to whom, and when. He did not do it out of obvious cruelty. He did it because it was the only way he knew to feel important, to occupy space in the world, to exist in other people's eyes. That is the thing nobody says about gossipers. They are empty people who fill their emptiness with the lives of others. They build nothing of their own. They demolish other people's lives and move into the ruins as if they were home. Elena Marchetti had moved into the Aurora building 8 months earlier. Transferred from Milan after the end of an 11-year marriage, she had a 9-year-old daughter named Sofia, a suitcase too large for one person, and a cardboard box filled with books she had refused to leave behind. She worked as a freelance graphic designer, handling clients from home, and during those first days, she thought that building with the wisteria might be the right place to begin again. The apartment was on the 3rd floor, with a window overlooking the courtyard and a small terrace at the back. Facing a quiet alleyway, Elena had painted the walls white the first weekend. She had bought 2 plants at the Porta Palazzo market. She had arranged her books on a shelf she assembled herself on Sunday morning while Sofia handed her bolts and laughed. She was building something new, piece by piece, with the determination of someone who had already lost enough and could not afford to lose hope too. She carried the invisible weight of people who start over, that exhaustion mixed with courage that cannot be seen from outside but can be felt in every morning when you decide to get up anyway. What she did not know yet was that Renzo Cattaneo had already sized her up from the balcony, the very day she moved in. He had watched her arrive with the suitcase. He noticed she was alone, calculated her age, saw the child, and had already begun constructing the story he would later tell the other residents. Separated woman from out of town, works from home, who knows how she makes a living. Those were the foundations, and once he had foundations, Renzo had already begun building. The rest would come with time, patiently, methodically, without ever putting his name on anything. Gossipers know that signatures are their only weakness. And Renzo had never signed anything in 32 years. What nobody understands until they are trapped inside it is that the damage does not arrive all at once. It arrives in drops, like water hollowing out stone. By the time you notice it, the stone is already marked. The problem with gossipers is not that they talk. The problem is that they know exactly when to speak, who to speak to, and how to present a half-truth so it feels worse than a complete lie. Renzo was a master at this. He almost never invented things entirely. He took something real, wrapped it in doubt, added a concerned tone, a strategic pause, a look that said, "I'm only trying to help," and the work was done. During the first 3 months, Elena began realizing something was wrong. Mrs. Ferraris from the 4th floor barely greeted her. The young man upstairs avoided the elevator whenever she was inside. The building manager sent her a formal letter about supposed nighttime noise she had never made. She felt watched, judged, excluded, without understanding why or knowing where the feeling came from. She tried to be friendlier, to smile more, to hold doors open, to greet people first. Nothing changed. If anything, her friendliness became further proof of something, as though people who try too hard to seem pleasant must be hiding something they do not want others to see. Invisible. Wounds are the hardest to heal because you cannot even point to them clearly. You cannot go to a doctor and say this hurts, because this has no shape, no precise name, only the dull weight of feeling out of place somewhere you have every right to belong. Elena began sleeping less, working more, leaving the apartment as little as possible. Sophia noticed one evening during dinner. She said, "Mom, are you sad?" And Elena answered, "No, sweetheart, I'm just tired." But she was both at once, and she could no longer separate the two. One Tuesday afternoon in February, Elena went down to the courtyard with Sophia to pick up a package from a courier. The cold bit through their coats, the sky hung low and grey, the wisteria was only a tangle of bare branches against the stone wall. While waiting, she heard Renzo's voice drifting from the 2nd floor window, cracked open a few inches despite the cold. He was speaking on the phone. The voice was low, but in the enclosed courtyard it bounced off the stone walls and carried clearly, almost amplified. "She's the one on the 3rd floor, yes, the one with the little girl. Nobody really knows what she does for a living. I heard her husband left her for another woman, probably had a reason. And then all those clients coming and going at every hour. It's not exactly clear what kind of work she really does." Eleanor froze. The cold surrounded her. The courtyard stones were damp. A pigeon walked along the ledge above. Renzo's window. The courier rang the buzzer a second time and she did not hear him. Sophia tugged at her sleeve. "Mom, the man is waiting." She signed the paper without looking at the courier, took the package and climbed the stairs slowly, her back straight and her heart pounding. Inside her, something was crystallizing that was no longer just pain, it was clarity. The clarity of someone finally understanding where the cold comes from and no longer searching for the problem inside herself. That is what gossipers do that nobody says out loud. They do not attack you directly. They surround you. They build a narrative around you that you cannot see but everyone else breathes, until it becomes the air of the place, until it stops being a story and turns into reality. And you stand there wondering why you feel like a stranger somewhere you have every right to belong, convinced the problem must be inside you, when in fact it is outside you, precise, and carrying a first and last name. Elena understood that in the courtyard, package in hand, with her daughter looking up at her with wide eyes, she understood that it was not the wrong building. It was one person, and that person had chosen to hurt others for no real reason except that he could, and because until then no one had decided to stop him. Back upstairs, she placed the package on the table, made tea for Sophia, then sat down at her laptop. She opened a new document and simply named it Notes. She began writing everything down with the precision of someone who no longer trusts memory, only facts recorded in black and white. The letter from the building manager about the nighttime noise, with the date, Renzo's comment during the November meeting, the cold greetings, the changed behavior, the small signs she had ignored because she thought she was imagining things. And then what she had heard in the courtyard that afternoon, word for word, with the exact time and exact phrasing. She worked for 2 hours while Sophia slept. On the couch, clutching her stuffed cat, and the lamp bathed the room in warm yellow light, with a patience she did not know she possessed, the kind found only when you are absolutely certain you are right and willing to wait for the correct moment. 3 weeks passed in silence. She changed nothing in her daily behavior. She greeted Renzo normally whenever she met him in the hallway. He suspected nothing. The March condominium meeting was scheduled for Saturday morning at 10. Agenda: approval of the roof repair. Budget: discussion about courtyard. Cleaning, miscellaneous matters. Elena woke early that morning, prepared breakfast for Sophia, left her with the neighbor across the hall who had offered to watch her for an hour, and went downstairs carrying a folder under her arm and a calm expression that revealed nothing. The meeting room contained a long table, 11 gray plastic chairs, and a window overlooking the courtyard where the wisteria was beginning to grow its first green buds despite the cold. The room smelled faintly of damp walls and coffee, brought in a thermos by the woman from the 6th floor. The muted traffic from Corso Galileo Ferrari's hum through the double pane windows. Renzo Cataneo was already seated there, wearing his gray turtleneck sweater and the expression of a man who still considered himself the owner of the place. He greeted Elena with a nod containing exactly 0 warmth. She smiled back openly. As always, for the first 40 minutes, the meeting proceeded normally. The roof, the estimate, the company, the division of costs among apartments. Then they reached miscellaneous matters. The building manager, Daniele Fontana, 52 years old, thick glasses and a worn leather briefcase, asked whether anyone wished to raise additional concerns. Elena raised her hand. She said she had something to bring to everyone's attention, not regarding the building itself, but regarding the atmosphere that had developed among the residents over recent months. The room fell silent. Renzo looked at her with mild amusement, the expression of someone convinced he can manage any situation, because he always has. He still did not understand what was about to happen. Elena opened the folder and began reading. She read the building manager's letter concerning the alleged nighttime noise, formally asking Daniele Fontana whether there existed a single written complaint against her. The manager slowly shook his head. No formal complaints. Elena continued in the same steady voice, never raising her tone by even half a step. She referenced the comment made during the November meeting, the one about people who come from elsewhere and do not understand the building's habits. Then she described, calmly and precisely, what she had heard in the courtyard in February, the voice from the 2nd floor, the exact words, the tone, the meaning, the fact that her 9-year-old daughter had been standing beside her. While those words echoed through the courtyard walls, no one sitting around the table spoke. The room stayed silent for a moment that felt much longer than it truly was. Renzo opened his mouth, then closed it again. Mrs. Ferrari stared at the table. The young man upstairs shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Elena never raised her voice once. She did not accuse, she did not shout, she did not cry. She simply said she had arrived in that building with her daughter after a difficult period, intending to begin again, and that she had the right to do so without someone inventing stories about her, without knowing her. She said she was not asking for apologies. She was simply setting the record straight once and for all, in front of everyone. Because certain things only work in darkness, and once you drag them into the light, they lose their power. Renzo tried to speak. Elena, look, I certainly didn't mean... She interrupted him gently but firmly. I'm not finished. And she continued. She explained that she understood the mechanism now, that she recognized how it worked. A word here, a suggestion there, a concerned tone that was really just invasive curiosity disguised as concern. She said this kind of behavior does not only hurt the victim, it hurts everyone because it poisons trust and turns a place where people should feel safe into a place where everyone feels judged. Then she closed the folder and said she was done. The silence afterward was different from before. It was no longer the silence of surprise. It was the silence of people recognizing something true and not knowing exactly what to do with it. Daniele Fontana cleared his throat, adjusted his glasses, and said he expected all residents to maintain respectful relationships with one another, and that he would take into account what had emerged. He looked directly at Renzo while saying it. Renzo stared at the table. His face carried the color of a man who wanted to stand up and leave but understood that leaving would look worse than staying. In the days that followed, something changed inside the Aurora building. It was not a loud change. It was the ending of something quiet. One morning, Mrs. Ferrari stopped Elena in the hallway and apologized for being cold toward her. Without further explanation, but with a tone that said more than 1,000 explanations ever could, the young man upstairs started holding the door open. Whenever he saw her carrying groceries, Renzo Cattaneo stopped sitting on the balcony every morning with his usual theatrical presence. The wicker chair remained empty for hours, sometimes for entire days. It was not a spectacular victory. It was not the final scene of a movie where the villain collapses and everyone applauds. It was something subtler and more real. It was the moment a person decides she is no longer willing to be reduced to a story told by somebody else. A moment that, once lived, changes something inside forever. 4 months after that March morning, Elena sat on the balcony of her third-floor apartment. Sophia was drawing at the table in the living room while the low sound of the television drifted through the open glass door. The wisteria in the courtyard was in full bloom. Purple clusters hung along the wall and scented the air with the sweetness flowers carry after a long winter. Elena held a cup of coffee and looked down into the courtyard. Near the second-floor balcony sat Renzo's wicker chair, empty. The folder with the notes was still in the drawer of her office desk. She had not thrown it away. She had not reread it either. She kept it there. The way people keep something they do not want to forget. Not out of hatred, but out of respect for themselves. For the person they became when they decided to stop staying silent. Because silence sometimes is not peace. It is only the most polite form of surrender, and Elena had stopped surrendering. Long before that March morning, she had stopped. The day she opened her laptop and typed the first word into that document. Pause for a moment before closing this video. Think about how many times you sensed something wrong around you and chose not to say anything, hoping it would go away on its own. Think about how much energy you have spent wondering what other people think about you without realizing that maybe someone was intentionally feeding those doubts. A gossiper is not merely annoying. A gossiper is someone who uses your life as raw material to construct their own importance. Someone who does not have enough to say about themselves, so they speak about everyone else. And the best way to stop them is not screaming. It is not revenge. It is taking away their power to define who you are in front of everyone, calmly and with the strength of someone who knows the truth is on their side. Elena did not destroy anyone. She simply stopped disappearing. And sometimes, in life, that is exactly enough. If this story made you think of something, leave a comment below. And if you are not subscribed to the channel yet, do it now. Every week I return with stories just like this.